Hi, I'm Daniel Roberts, and you are listening to the Givingtown podcast, where we share stories of hope and generosity in our wonderful community of Newberg, Oregon, and the surrounding area. This podcast is sponsored by my real estate team, the Driftwell Roberts Group, and we are licensed real estate brokers with Premier Property Group, LLC. We're passionate about serving our clients well and also educating people about the many aspects of real estate, which is why we've created a YouTube channel that does just that. We discuss real estate tips, buyer and seller guides, market reports, as well as what makes Newberg a great place to live, in addition to so many other great topics. So if that's something you're interested in, you can check out our YouTube channel, which is linked in the description in this episode. So today I'm talking to Larry Strober. He's a fellow Rotarian in the Newberg Noon Rotary Club with me, and we'll be discussing how Larry got involved in Rotary, some of the projects he works on, as well as why this work is so important to him. Larry really exemplifies what it means to be a Rotarian, so I hope you enjoy and are inspired by today's episode. Hey everyone, I am here with Larry Strober, who is a fellow Rotarian with me in the Newberg Noon Rotary Club. So today we're going to be talking about some of Larry's past, some of his background, how he's been involved with Rotary, and what his life looks like as a Rotarian. And we were talking or actually, I guess recently Larry shared at our club about a lot of the different things that he's been involved with, both locally and really throughout the world. And so today's going to be sharing some of that. So Larry, thank you so much for joining me today. I think there's going to be a lot of great information we have to share.
Yeah, pleasure being here.
So first off, can you share a little bit about your background and what led you to be so involved in the community?
Well, it wasn't always that way. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I spent my first 20 years there. Brooklyn, everyone has an identity with Brooklyn, but Brooklyn wasn't community, or 2.5 million people community. Went on to Bucknell University, and then got involved in an interesting project in the Army with the Satellite Communication Agency. I was a first lieutenant and wound up helping set up the first defense communication satellite project for the government. It was the first time leaders of the free world could actually talk to each other on a secure network.
Oh, wow.
And it kind of gave me a sense that I could make things happen. I could make a difference. In fact, I wear a Rotary pin every day that says "Making a Difference," which was a logo or motto of one of our past presidents. So that kind of gave me a sense and allowed me to get into Silicon Valley and establish a career working with startups. I did that for quite a number of years, living in San Rafael, California, raised 2 boys. And the sense of satisfaction I got working with startups was like one with MicroPro, with WordStar. We wound up with 400 to 500 employees. And I had a sense of satisfaction that I helped create this job market for 400, 500 people. And other companies weren't as large, but 20 people here, 50 people there. And it's different than the satisfaction one gets with service above self, which is the Rotary motto. But around 10 years ago, I moved to Oregon, mainly because there are 3 grandkids that are not very far away, but continued to do my work with startups, and joined the McMinnville Chamber of Commerce. And then one day at a chamber meeting, Kelly Mankey, who is now the president of the city council in McMinnville, said, "What are you doing next Wednesday morning?" Said, "Hey, I don't do anything on Wednesday mornings." She said, "Come to breakfast with me." So I went to the McMinnville Sunrise Club. 7 o'clock in the morning, I actually got there 6:45. And they had an interesting program, met a number of people, and I went home and I remember telling my wife that I just met 30 friends. So 30 days later, I joined the McMinnville Sunrise Club.
And the Sunrise Club was a Rotary Club?
It's a Rotary Club, yeah, with about 30 members. a small Rotary club. There are 2 Rotary clubs in McMinnville. Became president 2 years later. Became assistant governor 2 years later, and I was assistant governor for 3 years, and got involved with Mike Caruso at the Newberg Club doing peace projects. So we got involved planting peace poles. I ran the McMinnville Peace Village, which I wanted to prove to some people at Rotary that all of the spokes of Rotary, the Peace Fellows and the Peace Poles and the Peace Centers all could come together in one unified, and we did it.
Yeah.
We did it, again, making a difference.
Yeah.
About 2 years ago, I decided to move over to Newberg to work with Mike and working on different projects. I work on local projects, regional projects, national projects, and international projects. The majority of them are peace-related, but like I'm working as the economic facilitator for the city of Lafayette, which has a pretty depressed downtown. So we're working to revitalize that. I have several small companies that I advise in McMinnville, looking to revitalize the Bayou Golf Course and build an event center in McMinnville. But most of the work that I really enjoy is I'm working to help end gun violence in Portland with the Portland Peace Initiative, and working with several Black-owned nonprofits to recruit young men into activities that are not gang-related.
Yeah. Working
on placing peace poles in Northern Oregon, where we've placed 500 peace poles, but working with Al Jubitz and Dennis Wong and Kevin Munn and Ray Matsumiya, who are really heavily involved in Rotary peace programs, to do a peace pole initiative globally.
Yeah.
We're working in Armenia, Georgia, and Russia. At least we were working in Russia. I have a youth.
It seems like Russia's not super interested in peace right now.
Russia is right now. They have turned off all Rotary activities. So, but we're still working in Armenia and Georgia and Africa. Tomorrow I have a meeting, a virtual meeting with the Forest Grove Rotary Club, where Emily Bakita is going to present her Rise to Shine Foundation, which keeps kids in school in Kenya. We're working, placing peace poles with our Mandela Fellows in Africa. We have 25 African leaders visit us 5 years ago. And what's interesting is almost all of these activities are interrelated.
Okay.
It's hard for me to go to a meeting now where I don't recognize a face or two.
Yeah.
So, and I get a lot of satisfaction because I can see that we are making a difference.
Yeah. So you moved from California originally back to Oregon because you had grandkids here. And then you were, is that when you had officially retired from your kind of regular daytime job, or was that?
There was no official retirement. It was just a transition.
Yeah. Because a lot of people will go into, they'll work until they're whatever age, they'll retire to where, they basically go from working every day to then they're just at home doing whatever they do. But for you, you got involved, it sounded like what started as a breakfast meeting and then what has led to all of these different activities. Do you kind of see that as the kind of the key thing that led to all this? Or do you feel like you would have, maybe that you're just the type of person who would have found a way to get involved anyway?
I think I became a different me. Sitting home all day watching TV or reading doesn't sound very attractive. I'm not very good at fixing things around the house. So my wife doesn't ask me to do things like that. So this was just like a lot of things in my life that just happened, and the ability to take advantage of that happening is kind of how my whole life evolved. Meeting with Kelly Menke, getting involved with the Satellite Communications Agency, getting picked to go out to San Francisco, which got me involved in Silicon Valley. All of these were chance happenings that one took advantage of, but were not planned. Sitting in Brooklyn, New York, there wasn't a lot of planning on your future. And my dad got a degree in night school in accounting. My mother never went to college. All four of my grandparents came from what's now Ukraine.
Okay.
They never had a high school education. So I guess I was the first one. And going to Bucknell was because one of our neighbors happened to know someone at Bucknell. I did a trip there that seemed like a really nice place to go. Got accepted. So Bucknell led to ROTC, which led to the Satellite Communications Agency, which led to Silicon Valley, which led to two kids moving to Oregon, which led to Oregon, and then Kelly Menke and the breakfast meeting. And now we're involved in, probably 10 to 12 different projects. All of them, on a daily basis, keep me involved. I have Zoom calls mostly every evening. During the day, maybe 5 to 6 hours of Zoom calls, in-person meetings, writing grant requests, just moving things from one place to another place.
Yeah. So, and I want to get into some of the specific projects you're a part of, but I know that'll take up a fair amount of time. So kind of as we get into that, because you've kind of painted with a broad brush some of the things you're involved in, what would you say to someone who has retired, that maybe that's what they're doing? They're watching TV or they're reading books every day. Maybe what would you say, or what do you say when people talk to you and they find out all the things that you're doing? Maybe they say, I would never want to do that, or it sounds too stressful, or how do you respond to those people, or what do you say?
I think you want to have to make a difference. It's not hard to join a service organization. It's not expensive. It doesn't take a lot of your time. But I think you have to have some inner yearning to make a difference. I know, I don't need limelight. I don't need to have, something shining on me. I just get up in the morning and I know I have things to do, and I do them because they're worthwhile. They make a difference. And I think if you look at all of the projects, they have one word that kind of describes that. Maybe not for the economic development work, but youth. The Peace Village is about youth. Ending gun violence in Portland is about youth. Most of the peace poles that we plant are in elementary schools and middle schools and high schools. Yeah. So we have a monthly youth conversation with kids in Krasnoyarsk and Yekaterinburg and St. Petersburg and Moscow and Omsk. And my grandkids are involved in that. Some people in Denver, some people in Chicago. And we have a 1 hour talk. It's very non-political. It's about what you watch on Netflix. And the kids are 13 to 16. And the kids in Russia are just the same as the kids in the United States. And that's the purpose, is to understand that there really is no difference. That's the purpose of Peace Village, is getting kids to understand that even if someone doesn't look the same, doesn't speak the same, doesn't eat the same, that we're all the same. Yeah.
And I think that's really important. I mean, especially now, even, with the conflict in Russia, I think it's really easy to vilify Russian people that may have nothing to do with what's going on. And that's good, goes for any any people group that is different in some way. So I think that's really great.
Yeah, and we talked with Christina Saturday morning, who has had to relocate to Germany, is living in a boarding house because of her family situation. Alana is of Jewish heritage. Her family has a very successful business in Krasnoyarsk. They're going to have to move to Israel. Konstantin is in...
and these are all people within...
These are the Russian young ladies we've been talking to. Konstantin had to leave St. Petersburg, and he's looking to reconcile with his family in the U.S. sometime next year. So, even though these are Russians they have nothing to do with the conflict's affecting them.
Right. So getting to some of the specific things, I know you've touched on some of them. What right now would you say is, it may be a tough thing to say, like, what's your favorite, but what is one of the ones that is maybe you're spending a lot of time on right now that you'd say is especially fulfilling, or you feel like is making especially an impact?
I've been with Peace Village Global for 8 years on the board. And we are working right now in two specific areas. Peace Village started in 27 years ago in Lincoln City with a horrifying... 2 kids were beat up and put in the hospital. Mm-hmm. So the Siletz tribe, a church, and Peace Village got together and they created a camp. And that camp has spread to 30 different cities around, but also to developing a curriculum on nonviolence and mindfulness and respect for each other. Yeah. So we're working now. We did a Peace Village in Kenya. We did one in Beirut, or outside of Beirut, in Tripoli, Lebanon. But we're working in Syria right now. And Lizzie is the executive director. She'll be in Germany next month with the woman working with displaced youth to introduce them to how to express themselves through art and music and through making film. Yeah. And she's also working with Lionel Irving, who runs Love is Stronger, several other Black-owned nonprofits, and 5 Rotary clubs to do a youth leadership training in Portland next summer, which we hope will be sustainable on a year-to-year basis, to, again, get kids off the street and get them involved in something that has nothing to do with gangs and nothing to do with revenge or getting even. Like I'm working with a gentleman now who played with the Chicago Bulls for 3 years and the Atlanta Hawks for a year, Thomas Gardner, who runs a basketball camp in Portland, and he has about 150 kids that come there 3 times a week. Yeah. And they focus on social activities and basketball, and the kids don't have time to think about anything that's gang-related. Yeah. And is this all under the umbrella of Peace Village Global? Or this is under, related to, it's under Rotary. Gotcha, okay. The Portland Peace Initiative was Rotary started. We have a Rotary meeting every Saturday morning for an hour and a half, which started by Lake Oswego Rotary and Al Jubitz. It's a racial justice meeting. That's 40 to 50 people. We've had the mayor of Portland. It's really focusing in on why does Portland have this violence going on? And it's not stopping, it's increasing. It's youth related. Every week they talk about this child was killed or this child was injured, and there's no reason behind it all. Yeah. So, again, everything is kind of interrelated. Yeah. Well, that's the thing I love about Rotary, and the longer I've been in it, the more I've
learned that there are so many projects like this that most people will never hear about. Even people within Rotary are probably unfamiliar just because there's so many things. Many people have heard of Rotary as being, they may know it's a service club. They may know, they give out scholarships, but most people have no clue the depth and breadth of what Rotary does.
And most people don't even know what Rotary does. So this project I'm working on with people around the country is to put a QR code on peace poles. So when you're walking through a park or near a school, you just put your phone on the QR code and it'll open up the world of Rotary. We're still not sure whether it should be national, international, or local, but it will provide a vision of the service projects and the reason why Rotary exists. Rotary's been there for over 100 years. Yeah,
and it's done so much. I mean, even most people now know polio as a vaccine, but not polio as the disease. And that's just one of so many, just a little tiny piece of the tip of the whole iceberg of Rotary. And I think that's why it's great to just get involved, and part of why I wanted you to come and share today, because you are involved with so many things. And for people who have no idea what Rotary is about, this is just kind of it can be about so many things. There's not like one thing.
Well, there's seven avenues of focus, from the environment to economic development in third world countries, to getting rid of polio, to peace projects, clean water, etc.
Yeah. And then on a more local level, within that, here in Newberg, the Noon Club is focused more on youth. So youth development, youth services, that kind of thing. And then there's also a morning club, and they focus on more of the brick and mortar, that kind of thing. But you're involved kind of at a much broader level because you're connecting with several other Rotary clubs around the country.
I talk to different Rotary clubs every week, and and every Rotary club has its own personality, and the personality actually continues whether the president changes every year and the board changes every year. But the Rotary clubs kind of stay focused on what they do and what they do best.
Yeah. Can you share another project you're working on that you feel is especially relevant right now?
This is a new one, but I've been working with a woman in Nicole in Portland, who and she spoke at our Rotary Club not too long ago. Nicole Brewster. She runs a nonprofit called Elevate Him, and I am on the board recently, as of last week. Okay. Working to help her partner and help her raise funds. 11 years ago, her best friend and her brother committed suicide after her birthday party. It was on a Friday night of celebration. Everybody was happy, and she got a phone call the next morning that Bill Brewster had committed suicide. Her life has changed and will always be changed. So she's dedicated herself now to helping men in crisis. She's not a mental health professional. She's not a hotline, but people search her out, and she has saved lives of several men in the 6 months I've known her. She clothes men who come out of prison who are looking for a job. She gives them haircuts. She coaches them on how to present themselves at a job interview. And she's really a wonderful human being. So helping her helps me. Yeah. Again, service above self. Yeah. So I like doing that.
Yeah. 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 I remember when she came and spoke, that was a pretty powerful message. And I think just so needed. I mean, like you said, it is needed right now, because anytime I think when we're going into an economic downturn, especially, and it's any time, but when, I think there's a lot of pressure on men, and there's not really a lot of services, I guess, and services isn't even the right word, but men are often told you have to suck it up, you have to get over it, you have to get through it, or whatever. And that works up to a point until, if they don't have anyone that they can confide in.
Some men get put in prison for whatever reasons, and then the door opens one day and says, you're out. And that's as much as the government helps.
Right.
Yeah. So she fills that gap.
Yeah.
And what was nice about Rotary is she got a standing ovation after her speech, and that made her day and her month and her year. It gave her renewed vitality to do what she does.
Yeah. I'm sure that's not an easy thing to be bearing those burdens too. So, that is definitely a good program to be involved.
Another thing, we have Natalia, who's from the Beaverton Club, but she's from Armenia. And she's now in Armenia working on peace projects in Armenia. Armenia is at war with Azerbaijan, in Georgia, and she was working very closely with 7 Rotary clubs in Russia. So we talk once a week, but I helped her raise the money to get her to Armenia to do what she's doing. So, again, all of these things kind of make me feel good. They are not, in my mind, hard work. They take hours here and there. Sometimes it's hard for me to realize from a previous conversation which activity was that conversation in.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, all in all, again, the day in the life of a Rotarian, I am spending more hours doing what I love to do right now than I've ever done in my career.
Yeah. And you mentioned a few minutes ago that you feel like you're a changed person. Do you feel like that's, like, looking back, I'm sure, is it just like a slow evolution, or do you feel like there was a time where you felt like something shifted inside and changed?
I think it was the Rotary world opened up a different world for me. Because the projects that I am working on are invisible to most people. So the world of Rotary, which is 35,000 clubs and 1.5 million people, changed my vision.
Yeah.
And that was a good thing.
Yeah. We have probably time for one more project. I wish we could talk about all of them, but I think we could go in depth for a couple hours to go through every single one.
One project, my McMinnville Peace Village, was related to this. I mentioned the Mandela Fellows. We had 25 African leaders from sub-Saharan Africa visit Portland 5 years ago. They spent, I think it was 90 days at Portland State, but we got them to come to McMinnville and Newberg for one day. We took them out to the museum where the Spruce Goose is located.
Okay.
And so we spent a whole day with them. And we had the museum prepare an African lunch. And we've stayed with several Rotarians, we've stayed friends. And so right now we're working on planting peace poles in 16 of those countries. And we've started in Kenya and Botswana. But what we've created with Emily in Kenya and with Reem in Syria, are friends, international friends, in places where they're struggling. So that international aspect of what I do is and especially with grandparents who came from Ukraine, and working to help Ukrainians, and working to help our young Russian friends, and helping the people in Africa. And so that's another part of me that feels good. So working with youth, working with international countries that are struggling, and then working locally in local community.
Yeah. One of the things I appreciate about you, Larry, is, most people will turn on the news and they'll talk about it, and they'll talk about all the negative things that are happening. is you kind of sidestep that and you just get involved. You do what you can. And granted, you're only one person and you're one person who does a lot, but you're still one person that you said, hey, I can do what I can do and I'm going to be involved in this way. And one of the reasons I reached out specifically to you to share all of this is if every retired person were to do what you do, I think our world would be a much different place.
Yeah, I don't watch the news. The news is negative, so everything I try and do is positive.
Yeah. And I think there's really something to that, because I heard it said the news, their job supposedly is to tell us what's going on, but their business is to keep us watching. And they find by sharing all the negative, sensational things, that's what keeps people watching. But it
doesn't keep me watching.
It doesn't keep you watching, but because you have a purpose. You live your life with a purpose. Mm-hmm. And the reason I wanted for you to share is because I think it's inspiring. And you're one of those people who you do all of this stuff. Unless someone were to have a conversation or to listen when you spoke at Rotary, they would have no clue. And you kind of like that, right? You don't like being in the limelight. That's not why you're doing it. And I think that's why it's so important for people to see and hear about it, because it's not about being in the limelight. That makes no difference. It's, but there are people like you who are doing amazing things locally and internationally. And I just want this to be an inspiration for anyone listening that, your life can be about so much more than just your close circle and focus on yourself. But I think when you, like Larry was saying, when you turn your focus outward and begin looking for ways that you can be involved and help, I'm sure you found so much more fulfillment than you probably could imagine.
But I reached an age where I had the time to do that.
Yeah.
And I look at my two sons who are both involved in raising families and job-related activities and family activities. Mm-hmm. And it's, I would love them to join Rotary, but they don't have the time right now. Mm-hmm. But hopefully, as they get to that certain age, they might have the motivation to do the same thing.
Yeah. And at every stage, it looks different. I mean, I have much less time right now than I probably will. Well, maybe, in the future. But I think having, even if it's only 1% of your time, whereas maybe that ratio can change, but really for the people who are in your stage of life, whether they're teens and during the summer, they've got nothing to do except either cause trouble or play video games or whatever, or if someone's retired. And I think a lot of people just don't know what opportunities there are. So they just go with the path of least resistance. And I like what you said of so many things happen by chance of, you had that meeting with Kelly and got involved in Rotary. And this episode for some people might be that to recognize, oh wow, there's a whole other world out there. Yeah.
Well, I met my wife at a chance meeting that if I didn't go to that party that one night, I never would have met her. Yeah. So the same thing with Kelly. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't go to that Rotary meeting. So what the last 10 years would have been like. Yeah. They wouldn't be the same.
Yeah. So given what you're doing and how much you've been involved in, I like asking this next question of what gives you hope for the future of Newberg?
Kids. The youth we meet all the time are somewhat different. I think this Generation Z they're talking about thinks differently. But between the Peace Village camps and the youth conversations in Russia and the kids are meeting in the basketball camps in Portland, that's what gives me confidence for the future. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Larry, so much. Is there any closing remarks you'd like to make to anyone listening to this?
No, I just think take a look at how you want to live your life, and helping others is not a bad way to do it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you, Larry. Appreciate your time, appreciate your heart for our community and just for service in general. I think you do an excellent job of exemplifying what Rotary is all about.
Good. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing Larry's story and are inspired to find ways where you can make a difference as well. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider sharing it with a friend who you think would enjoy listening to it as well. Well, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next episode.